Hi, welcome to Constitutional Chats, hosted by me, Janine Turner,
and Kathy Gillespie,
with students
Dakari Chapman
and me, Tova Kaplan.
Join us as we discuss hot topic issues with constitutional experts. It's sponsored by Constituting America.
We are so excited to be with you today. We are going to be discussing the third in our series of Constitution and Immigration. This week, we're discussing immigration today with our very special guest, the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton. Now, General Paxton is going to be getting on around 1:15. And so we're going to go ahead and do our introductions and get all that out of the way. And we look forward to welcoming him and hearing from him and asking him some great questions. So first of all, Aubrey, do you want to put up our poll so that we can see who is with us in our audience today? If you'll just take a moment and answer. Whether you're a student or a teacher or parents or grandparents with children studying from home. We're just so glad that y'all are all with us today and would love to see who's in our audience. Now, while we're waiting for you to answer the poll, I wanted to thank our very special sponsor for today, Mr. Dwayne Horner. Dwayne Horner is on our leadership board and has been working as an advisor to Constituting America just about since we started our organization way back in 2010. And Dwayne tells us that his love of country and love of our U.S. Constitution drew him to become a part of Constituting America and our goal of educating America on the greatest gift given to us, the United States Constitution. Over his career, Dwayne has been involved in all aspects of civic engagement, both on a professional and volunteer basis. He serves on the board of the Crockett Retreat Center, assisting veterans and first responders by providing an opportunity to train with licensed horse therapists at a Texas ranch setting. Dwayne is a valued advisor to Constituting America and is the son of Charles and Marlene Horner. His father served America in Korea and Vietnam in the U.S. Navy. So, Dwayne, we thank you so much for all you do today and for helping us, especially with today's program. We're just so delighted to have you as our sponsor. Now I'll go ahead and introduce our panelists who we have with us today. First of all, we have our founder and co-president, actress Janine Turner. Janine is famous for her role as Maggie O'Connell in television's Northern Exposure. She is the founder and co-president of Constituting America, which launched in 2010. And Janine is still acting, but also actively teaching kids about the U.S. Constitution, having given over 540 speeches to classrooms across the country. Janine, would you like to say hi, or do you want us to move on?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Okay, so I'm moving to New York. I'm not leaving my ranch, but I'm heading to New York City for a while, and I'm packed, and I can't find my light. Where's my light? Anyway, hi, everyone. Great to be here. I don't know what I look like, but it's great to be here. Hello, everybody.
You look great. We also want to introduce Tova Kaplan. Tova is a 17-year-old from Chicago, Illinois. She's our National Youth Director, and she's a 3-time winner of the We the Future contest. Tova runs our Youth Advisory Board and does a wonderful job with that. She is passionate about inspiring young people to know and use their constitutional rights. Tova, would you like to say hello?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this fine Tuesday. I'm so glad to be here and hope you enjoy the show.
Thank you, Tova. We also want to introduce Jewel and Jorn Gilbert. They're brothers, and we are so happy to have them both on our panel. Jewel is executive producer and Jorn is operations director of Sing for America, a family-based company that the brothers co-founded. Sing for America seeks to show the art of truth and light through live performance. Both are proud former We the Future contest winners. Sing for America is an actor-run theater company which specializes in semi-professional musicals, private training in the arts, school drama solutions, and public entertainment events, all the while revealing a colorblind world on stage. So welcome, Jewel and Jorn. Would y'all like to say hello?
Hello, everybody. Hope you're ready for a great episode. I know that immigration's a hot button issue that everybody wants to understand.
Well, thank y'all so much. We are also very happy to have with us today Dakari Chapman. And Dakari is one of our original Constitutional Chat panelists, and he has been off working as a working actor and has returned and has some time and is joining us today. So Dakari, we're so happy to have you. Dakari is an 18-year-old student from North Carolina. He's Constituting America's Student Ambassador, serves on our Youth Advisory Board, and is a two-time winner of Constituting America's We the Future contest. Dakari is a working actor and will be seen in season 2 of Netflix hit series Outer Banks. Dakari, would you like to say hello?
Hi, everyone. We're so glad that you are here, and thank you to all of our donors, and especially the sponsor for this episode, Mr. Horner. We thank you so much for your contributions, and we hope that you enjoy today's episode, guys.
Well, thank you, Dakari. So, Janine, while we're waiting for our special guest, and shall I go ahead and introduce Attorney General Paxton, or what would you like?
Yeah, let's do so that when he gets on, we're raring to go, as we say here in
that
Texas.
sounds great.
Also, I do want to give a shout out to Dwayne Horner. Thank you so much, Dwayne Horner, for sponsoring today. Appreciate it so much.
So our special guest today is the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton. Ken Paxton is the 51st Attorney General of Texas. He was elected on November 4th, 2014, and sworn into office on January 5th, 2015. He was reelected to a second term in 2018. As the state's top law enforcement officer, Attorney General Paxton leads more than 4,000 employees in 38 divisions and 117 offices around Texas. Now, that includes nearly 750 attorneys who handle more than 30,000 cases annually, enforcing child support orders, protecting Texans against consumer fraud, enforcing open government laws, providing legal advice to state officials, and representing the state of Texas in court, among other things. Attorney General Paxton was first elected to the Texas House of Representatives in 2002, and then in 2012, he was elected to the Texas State Senate. Attorney General Paxton is a graduate of Baylor University, and he met his wife, Angela, while they were students at Baylor. I think that's a great story. She is the state senator for District 8 and a former teacher and guidance counselor at Legacy Christian Academy in Frisco. The Paxtons have 4 children and are members of Prestonwood Baptist Church in Plano. So we will be very excited in just a few minutes to welcome Attorney General Paxton to our show. And while we're waiting for Attorney General Paxton to come on, I did want to announce to everyone who's with us today that we're going to be starting our Constituting America auction very soon. It's going to run May 13th through the 20th. Now, this is our online auction that helps fund all of our great Constitution education programs, such as constitutional chats like these, our 90-day study that we currently have going on the homepage of our website. This year's topic is the Declaration of Independence, our school speaking program, promotion of our winter's works. And so if anyone has any items that they would like to donate to our Constituting America auction, if you could get in touch with me, my email is very simple. It is just Cathy with a C, C-A-T-H-Y, at constitutingamerica.org. Again, that's Cathy with a C, C-A-T-H-Y, at constitutingamerica.org. And we would love any auction items that you all may want to donate. Some people donate a week at their vacation home. They might have some antiques or collectibles that they donate. You may have a special historic site near you that you'd love to give a tour of. Dakari is actually the youngest tour guide in Charleston, South Carolina. And every year Dakari donates a guided VIP tour of Charleston, South Carolina. So we'll be talking more about our auction in future Constitutional Chats episodes, but we did want to put a plug in for that. And Janine, I'll hand it back over to you if you want to talk a little bit about our school speaking program.
Yeah, but people might want to hear about immigration, since that's kind of what maybe we should all talk about immigration a little.
Sure.
Yeah, the school speaking program, I've given over about 600 speeches at this point. We'd love to come speak to your school. And yeah, we speak about the Constitution, teach kids how to write a petition, and we can also do how to have a civil civic conversation. So it's fantastic, and we'd love to speak to your school or civic organization. So yes, Kathy is correct. Please go to our website, constitutionamerica.org, and sign up. All right, let's talk about immigration, everybody. Let's kind of do a free for all. Everybody just shout out. We have about 3 minutes before Mr. Paxton gets on. We can recap a little bit about the founding fathers, and but who wants to jump in and talk about what we've learned the past couple of weeks about immigration and what you're expecting today?
Well, for those of you who've been with us the past few shows, it's been a really amazing time, kind of tracing the roots of immigration throughout American history. So we started off with what the founders thought about immigration, which, was an hour-long thing, so it's hard to summarize in a few sentences of our country. The vast majority of Americans today came as immigrants. So it, is a big part of who we are. And we learned there's also been some tension throughout history with, immigration, as immigrants come in and people who are already here feel tension. They feel like, America is changing, and that causes different sorts of tension and fear, but also how it's a lot of hope for immigrants, and how it improves our country. We also talked about Ellis Island and kind of immigration throughout the 1800s and 1900s, how there was a big boom, and so many people's family stories started there, including mine. And now today we're going to close that up talking about immigration today and what that situation looks like. So anyone else is welcome to jump in, but it's been a really great series that you can access online if you're interested.
Yeah, I think Tova.
Totally. Go ahead, Dakari.
No, I was just going to say, I think Tova really summed it up. I haven't been here for the whole series, but I was here last week. And that was really good, just hearing about, Ellis Island and learning some new things about that. And, like Tova said, it changes all the time. And we're in this new world with, this virus that we don't know what's happening. And, so I'm interested to hear what we're doing today, and what that looks like for us. And, how maybe Texas is handling it. So I'm really excited to hear what General Paxton has to say.
Thank you, Dakari. And I think it is interesting to think about in the before Ellis Island, which what I've learned from the series is Ellis Island didn't actually start till much later in our history. Kathy, I think you know the exact date, or someone, Tova, Dakari. I mean, Ellis Island didn't start till the late 1800s, correct, Kathy? Someone Google that. I think it was the late 1800s. So before that, they would just arrive on boats and sort of disperse. And I remember thinking, well, how did they even keep a handle on immigration? There was a certain way that they came in, a lot of them, and they had to go through a process. But then my question was, well, what if they end up in some obscure, they land their boat in some wilderness and you never even know they're here. And of course that happened too. But if they wanted to own land or be property owners, have a business, sell, they had to eventually own up that they were on the land and become citizens. But we needed immigrants. We wanted immigrants, and we gave a lot of free land and all kinds of enticements so that we could have people come in and be a part of our country, because it was a vast wilderness.
But it's interesting to think about how those immigrants were viewed as becoming part of America, completely part of America, taking on the American ideals and encouraged to do so, and how that was as much a part of immigration as anything else. And then, I mean, one of the things we talked a little bit about then was how certain groups kept their cultures, and about how at the end of the day, the country was really concerned with then those different groups still becoming American.
Exactly. And we see Attorney General Paxton is approaching his chair. Should we give a minute by second? There he is. Hello, Attorney General Paxton. How are you? you.
How are
I'm
you?
Janine Turner, founder and co-president. How are you?
Hey, yeah, I'm doing great. How are you today? Can you move this back? I don't think it's centered up right. That better.
Well, what's that?
Oh, I was just trying to get her to center it up better.
Oh, okay. Well, it's wonderful, wonderful. We know you're so busy and we're just amazed and great, so incredibly grateful that you would take time to visit with us today. We've already done all of our introductions. We have co-president Kathy Gillespie and 4 extraordinary millennial on our show today that will also be asking questions, and our audience as well. So I'm just going to let you start out about, immigration today and what we're facing, especially here in Texas. And thank you once again. We're just going to give you the floor for a few minutes.
That's good. Well, thank you for doing this. I appreciate that you're trying to educate the youth of our country about the Constitution. There's nothing more dear to my heart than the Constitution. It's what we live by in my office, whether it's immigration or you named it, First Amendment issues. We are all about trying to understand what the founders meant and trying to defend those rights. It's what we swear to when we take an oath of office. So I think a lot of people forget that that's what our oath is. It's defending the Constitution. So we find ourselves today in the middle of constitutional fights almost every day. And so much of that right now for us is immigration, because we have an administration that thinks that they can just dictate the law. And as your viewers probably well know, there are 3 branches of government, and the executive branch is supposed to enforce the law, not change the law. That's up to Congress. And so these edicts that are being issued from Biden administration from day one, where he says, you can come across the border, we will not deport you. Well, that's fine for him to say, but the reality is he didn't have the authority to do that, because that's not what the law says. So we are at this point in our country where we have leadership ignoring the Constitution, taking their role and saying, not only am I the executive, but I'm also able to make the changes to law. And that fundamentally is what we disagree with, and what we're fighting over is, are we going to have a constitutional form of government in this country? And if we don't enforce that, if we don't push back and say, we insist that you operate under those constitutional principles, the entire Constitution gets thrown out the window, whether it's related to immigration or whether it's related to voting or whether it's related to First Amendment rights or Second Amendment rights. It all comes down to whether people are going to follow that Constitution and be confined by it, because that's what it does. The Constitution confines government and it gives the people freedom. And that's what we want to continue to remember. When government expands beyond that, then we are no longer confining government. They're taking over more than they should, and they're pushing the states out, and then they're pushing out individual rights. So that's what we're dealing with today. Is fundamental to where we're at, and it's going to be fundamental to where we go as we go forward.
Well, thank you. And I want everyone to be able to ask a question on the panel, but I was just looking it up in the actual Constitution, because I think this will be great for people to know. And since you're such a constitutionalist, we're really excited about that. But it appears to me here that it is the legislative branch's obligation to deal with immigration and naturalization. And in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4, to establish a uniform rule of naturalization. So it is within the legislative branch to handle this problem, isn't it?
No, absolutely right. This is exactly why on day 1, day 3, the Biden administration, we sued him over his statements that no longer would immigration law be enforced. Well, as you just noted, it's not up to him to decide that. If he wants to change the law, he can go to Congress and ask them to change the law, but they have to do it. And then he can implement any changes that they make, but he can't just unilaterally make these changes. And he's done that all along the way. We have this other issue. We've had many issues, including like he's supposed to deport prisoners after they've been released from prison in Texas prisons or other prisons. And unfortunately, he's letting these prisoners be released into our state and our country, and they get to stay. Well, that's not up to him to decide. That was decided by Congress, and now he's decided he's not going to follow his law. So, we're moving from a presidency governed by law to one that is not governed by law, which is much more like, some of these countries that just have one ruler who tells them how to live. And that's the direction that Joe Biden is taking us right now.
And he's doing that under the pretense of executive orders, correct? And I think that's one of our big problems of the executive orders. How do you get around that justification that it's an executive order?
Well, an executive order, he can issue all the executive orders he wants to, but he can't issue executive orders that are completely contrary to federal law. And so he can issue an executive order to tell an agency how to operate certain procedures, but he cannot do what he's doing, which he's doing over and over, whether it's the Keystone Pipeline or immigration. I'm sure we're going to continue to see this. I think he's issued more executive orders by far than any other president in US history. And that's what you do if I guess you want to run the country by edict, but that is not his role. Executive orders cannot overtake federal law, and they cannot overtake states' rights or individual rights. And that's where we are at today with the President of the United States acting as if that he's the guy and he can do whatever he wants.
And so what rights, this is my last question, I'm going to toss it to Tova. What rights do we have as a state? Let's just say it is with what rights do the states have, and in particular Texas, because I'm in Texas, and how are we going to fight back against this overreach?
So the Constitution says that the federal government only has those powers that are enumerated to whatever branch of government those powers are enumerated. Everything else remains in the states. So we are going to insist that the president operate under the enumerated powers of the Constitution that he has been given, which are a lot. He's given a lot of power. On the other hand, so are we as states. We agreed to this compact a long time ago. The states created the federal government, and we said, we'll let you do these certain duties. We're going to keep the rest. And so what we can do is we can fight back. We can tell our elected representatives in Congress, and we can let the Biden administration know we aren't going to put up with you telling us what to do outside of your role as president. You can't make up the laws. We need to speak out. And two, as a state, we need to speak out in a way that says, hey, we're not going to let you get away with this. We're going to do everything within our power, including file lawsuits to stop you from not doing your job or from doing things you're not supposed to do.
And you just filed a lawsuit, didn't you, just recently?
Yes. So we just filed one, what day? Today's Monday, last week. And that one was over COVID and the fact that they're not following health law rules, and other laws require that they take care of us and they look out for the safety of the public. And, we've all been dealing with this, and the president's been very strict about his view on COVID, except as it relates to immigration. If you're immigrating, then the rules don't apply to you, and you can pretty much spread COVID wherever they let you spread it.
This is as I tossed to Toby here, my brother had 2 Pfizer vaccinations and just got COVID, really, really bad case. And the antibody treatment is what saved him. And what's interesting is he has a friend that's in England that had COVID in December or something, and he still is testing positive to COVID. He's over it, but he's still testing positive to COVID, and he can't get back. They won't let him back in the United States because
No.
he's still testing positive for COVID. I'm like, well, just go to the southern border. You can just walk right across,
Isn't that crazy? You're a citizen of the country. You can't get back in, but if you come across illegally, you're invited in and you're told to stay.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Okay, Tova, you're on, Tova.
Hi,
Tova's one of
thanks
our
for
winners
being
and leader of our board. Go ahead, Tova.
Yeah, thank you for being on. So I was wondering, as an attorney general, you see a lot of immigration coming in. So what are the main, basically, I'm not sure if you know, but we've been doing a series on immigration throughout American history. So we've been going through it chronologically. So in modern day times, what would you say the major reasons for immigration is today? And what obligations do we have as a country? And does Texas have as a state, depending on the different reasons for immigration?
I may miss some of your question, but I'll try to answer what I heard. I think as policymakers in DC that our elected representatives need to determine the answer to those questions, which is, what kind of immigration we want. Immigration has always been part of our history. I think it's a good part of our history, but you can't just say, we're going to open it up to whoever can get here illegally. No country can survive with that because the overwhelming cost, the crime that is associated with it, the cartels then control who comes and who doesn't, and they make a lot of money off of it while they're also importing drugs. So you can't let the lowest common denominator, the cartels, decide our immigration policy. That should be decided by the people that we elect, which is Congress. And if they want to change immigration laws, I would encourage them to look at making sure that we get the people here that we want, and they limit it so that we don't end up hurting jobs in our own country. Because in the end, we should be responsible to our citizens first. And I think there's a reason that under President Trump that certain minority groups did better than they had ever done. And that's because this illegal immigration started being cut off, and it allowed wages to go up in this country so that people who live here can make more. So you need to take into account all of these factors so that you're benefiting all of the American people, not just some small group or just benefiting some other country. Thank you for the great question.
Dakari, you want to take a stab at it?
Sure. Thank you so much, General Paxton, for being here. I've really enjoyed listening to you speak. So one of my questions that I had from last week that I'm just continuing this week, I'm an actor, so being in California, I've seen so much, just different people and, immigration and things like that. Do you feel that, this illegal immigration is changing what we see as the quote unquote American dream? Do you think that that's slowly just going to be gone if we keep going the route that we're going?
Yes, I do. I think the very reason people are coming here is because they see that. And the problem is, if you don't do this in a manner that benefits the people of this country, you start affecting their ability to make a living, to have good wages, because you're bringing more and more people that will come in and undercut the Americans who are here. So I would just say we need to take care of the people who are here first, wherever they came from. I don't care where they came from. They're Americans. Once they're Americans, they deserve to be treated like citizens and not like second-class citizens. So before we bring others into this country, we start paying all the bills for them, which is what we're having to do. That's also money out of people's pockets that they might need for their own children or their own home. And it makes it harder for them to have, a standard of living that they're happy with, because so much of their money is being taken by the federal government to give to other people who are not citizens. And so, there's only as much as we might want to say, let's just let everyone come. The reality of that is, if you do that, you will destroy your country, and you will destroy the livelihood of most Americans, the middle class, and those who are not making as much. Those people are going to be most affected. And so in the end, you're not helping them out. You're making the country a less desirable place to be for everyone. Thanks for that question.
Thank you.
All right, General Paxton, thank you for being here. Wanted to kind of a technical question is, as Attorney General, what is in your authority as far as exercising immigration law and policy? And then how is Texas stopped from exercising immigration law and policy in the best interest of its state? Like what roadblocks federally when the new regime took over? How are you stopped, or how has it deteriorated when there's been no laws passed?
Yeah, so my role is a great question. My role is I don't have any role really directly in immigration. I'm an executive, much like Joe Biden. I have to implement things that my state passes, and I'm involved in defending my state and filing lawsuits on behalf of my state when laws are broken, like they have been in this case. Unfortunately, the U.S. Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision several years ago, it was Arizona v. U.S., where the federal government sued Arizona because Arizona had passed their own laws, because the federal government was not enforcing the immigration laws that they had in place. So they came back and said, well, hey, if nothing's being enforced, we want to protect our citizens. Well, the Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision, with Kennedy being the deciding vote with the 4 liberal judges, said that was completely within the purview of the federal government. So if we are to believe the Supreme Court decision, the states can't do anything about it. And that's part of the problem that you see now, is that the states supposedly have to just let it happen, and the federal government is letting it happen. And the states, because the federal government is supposedly responsible for this, even if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, are supposed to sit by and watch the crime come in, and the cartels come in, and the human trafficking and the drug smuggling all take place, while we have to sit here and watch illegal immigration occur. The reality is, I don't think that's the right decision. I think that they got it wrong. If the federal government passes a law, but they abrogate their responsibility, they don't follow through on their responsibility, the states ought to be able to step in to protect their people. It makes sense, and it's the only fair thing to do to a state that's on a border, is allow them. The federal government is not going to protect people. Let the state do it.
Afternoon, General Paxton. My question is about what your personal opinion is. So over time, we've had many different protocols for immigration, but if you could remove the red tape, no need to dot your I's or cross your T's, you could just say, this is what I want. What would your policy be on immigration?
It would be very, very similar to what the Trump administration did. I've watched presidents for decades mess this up and not do anything. Republicans, Democrats, they really, none of them got even close to getting it right. What I loved about what President Trump was doing is, one, he let the people, the professionals, Border Patrol, Customs Enforcement, our state police, he let them do their jobs, and they're good at it. They're as good as we can get. They're the best at it. They've done a great job of preventing people from coming in this country. They're not being allowed to do that. Second, this idea that the asylum process has become so abused. I believe in the asylum process. If you're persecuted, there ought to be a special place in America for you. On the other hand, every one of these people was being told by immigration lawyers here, claim asylum, you can come into the country, you won't have a hearing for years, you can disappear, you don't ever have to show up. It's it's basically a loophole, massive loophole in the system. Go ahead and use it. And President Trump finally figured out, hey, I'm gonna make these people wait in Mexico or some other country. They're not coming in until their asylum hearing's up. And the reality was only 14% of them were qualifying, the rest were just disappearing. So stopping that was key. And then finally, the long-term solution of building a wall, which they started, now Biden has just stopped. And it's really sad because the Border Patrol, I saw them down there, they love those walls because it just makes their jobs more doable. It makes it much harder for the cartels to smuggle people and drugs in.
Thank you.
Welcome. Great question.
Well, General Paxton, I'm Kathy Gillespie. I'm the co-president of Constituting America, and we have got a few great listener questions today. Our mutual friend, Dwayne Horner, who's actually the sponsor of this program today, asks, how does an attorney general actually file lawsuits? What is the process? What do you do to file a lawsuit? I think that's a really interesting question.
Yeah, so that's a great question from Dwayne, and I know Dwayne well. It is, it takes some work, usually a lot of research. We have to have standing first. So we have to have some harm to the state that we can address in court, and typically some type of damages. So we will do our research, because people want us to sue over all kinds of things. And in a lot of sense, we don't have standing. We don't have a direct harm to the state. It may harm somebody in the state or a business in the state, but we have to have a harm to the state. We have to be able to demonstrate, or we're going to get kicked out of court. So we want to make sure we feel like we have a strong standing argument. And look, sometimes we disagree with these judges and we think we have standing, they don't. And sometimes we have to appeal the standing decision. But then once we've done that, we prepare a complaint, which is what we think has been done wrong. And we file that complaint with the court, and we ask the court for a hearing or a trial on the merits of our case.
Great. Dwayne also asked how illegal immigrants have affected American citizens on the border. And I think just to go along with that, in your recent trip to the border, what were you most surprised about that you saw this past time?
I think just the overwhelming numbers and how a lot of these are border towns that are pretty small. They're being overwhelmed, and they don't know how to stop the people breaking into their property, cutting their fences down, letting their animals out. Because a lot of these are rural. These are people that have small farms or large farms. They can't stop it. They get their vehicles stolen. They don't feel safe, and they're asked to just let it happen. And I think it's very frustrating for these people who have built their livelihood around ranching and farming, that they can't stop the damage to their property, and it harms their ability to live and to be down there, and they feel unsafe.
Attorney General Paxton, what do you say to the people that feel that persecuted people have the right to come to this country, and we have no heart when we talk about, because I know this is what people think, this is what we're up against out there, that we have no heart to not let persecuted people come. It's a big country. Why can't we help out? That's what America's all about. And they should just come because they're being persecuted. So I'm curious about how you would respond to that, because what starts to happen, I feel, is, there are two sides to this coin. And of course, we Republicans and Democrats have the heart to want to help people who want to come across this border who are being persecuted. But I think that the how gets left out. And when someone wants to focus on the how, you're going to make this actually feasibly possible on all accounts, health and finances and safety and things of that nature, then suddenly that person doesn't have a heart, because they don't want just these poor persecuted people to come across the border. And they are poor persecuted people wanting to come across the border. It's what America's all about. But somehow when you say, well, wait a minute, there are actual logistics to this and it's causing some problems, suddenly you have no heart. And we lose the argument. So what do you say about those people that think, well, people who want to, make this happen from a legal point of view have no heart.
I just say it's just false. This is not true. We definitely have a heart. That there's no nation in the world, the history of the world, that has done more for people of other nations than ours. And we've let more people in here. I would say to them, if you don't care about a reasonable limit on who can come in, then you don't have a heart for the people that are already here who may suffer job losses and have to bear the cost, both socially by higher crime rates and potentially, more crime associated with the cartels having access to this country. I would say you don't have a heart if you haven't talked to some of the people that have suffered because of our lack of border security and our immigration policy that isn't watching out for the people that are here. So I would say the reality is, yes, we do have a heart, but there's a balance here, and the safety and welfare of our citizens really does matter to me, and it should matter to you too.
And just very quickly, can you tell us how it's actually very detrimental to some of these people that are trying to come across the border in this mass migration here, that it actually is, we kind of throw it out there, but you've been to the border a lot. What's actually happening to some of these kids? Can you tell us some like real hands-on stories of these kids that are being used by the drug cartel and whatnot? I mean, we don't ever hear the stories that it really is abusive, and then people who want to go by the law just once again have no heart. So some of the stories of how this doesn't just affect the American citizens, it's really negatively affecting the people that are trying to come across in this manner.
Story that didn't get told, you're right. So we do have the harm to the people that live in this country in all kinds of ways. But we also have the real problem with these people coming here, that they're almost every one of them has been delivered by the cartel. They have to pay for this. They're going to pay on average between, at the very low end, about $4,000 to get here, up to $50,000. That's kind of the range of what the cartels charge. So the cartels are being enriched by this, and they control these people, and they're going to stay in touch with them. And so they are really not as free as they think they're going to be, and because it's the only way they can get here is the cartels have to let them here. So we are clearly advancing the agenda of the cartels. That's what this does. It puts these people in great harm. When you look at these detention centers, kids are packed in with each other, they greater risk of disease, including COVID. And the question I have is, where are we sending them all? I mean, who knows where they're all going? We don't get told where they're going. We know that there's been allegations of crimes being committed against some of these kids, and we're not getting information. I know the district attorney in Midland pretty well, Laura. She hasn't gotten the information she needs to go after some of these prosecutions. So there's a lot of bad stuff happening. This policy, this total disaster of a policy by the Biden administration, I can tell you this, the one group that definitely helps, without exception, is the cartels. He is empowering and enriching and giving them greater access to both these people who are coming here and to the American people. So the cartels are definitely better off, but I would say everybody else is worse off.
Okay. So in other words, they follow these people for years and make sure they get their money back, and they're beholden to them, like kind of the mafia, I guess, Okay, we have 5 minutes left with your time. We're so conscientious of your time. I would like for Tova, Dakari, Jewel, Jordan, and Kathy to all have another quick question. So lightning round, here we go. Thank you. Thank you, Attorney General Paxton. We thank you so much.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot. I mean, you mentioned a lot about what you think the detrimental effects of immigration could be, illegal immigration. But, we also are fundamentally a nation of immigrants. Personally, my family would not be alive if not for American immigration. We would be dead. I'm Jewish, so that's like a big part of my life. And so how in Texas have you seen, the positive side of this? How have immigrants enriched your state? And what are the effects of that you've seen?
Well, my grandfather immigrated here, so I know that we are a nation of immigrants, and I applaud that. I think it's great to have diversity, and you can see it's helped make us a great country, and it's made Texas as certainly a melting pot from all over the world. We have very diverse cultures here, and I think it's great. It's just that this way we're doing it couldn't be any worse, and it's not, like I said, I don't think it's good for any group other than the cartels. So I would just encourage the president, one, to follow law, and if they want to change it and change up how we let people in, we need to do it in a much safer, more controlled way, so that we're not hurting people that come here, and we're not hurting people that are already here.
Okay, Dakari.
Yeah, so thank you again. So we've talked about Ellis Island last week, and so a question that I had was, you know, it seemed to me as if Ellis Island ran smoothly. It's like, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing this. You know, if you don't have this, you can't get in. So where's the disconnect now? Why can't it just run smoothly now? Is it technology? Is it the administration? What exactly is the issue?
It's Joe Biden not following the law. The law is actually set up to work, and what President Trump implemented worked. What Joe Biden does is following a pattern that was done in the previous administration, where he says, throw all these rules aside, the law, you know, the little thing we call the law, the Constitution, throw it aside. I'm not following it anymore. I'm going to have my own rules, and it's all based on what I like today, and we're going to do what I like. That's the problem. It's just out of control. A rogue president who's catering to, I guess, the cartels, because they're the only ones I can figure out really benefiting from all of this.
And as you said earlier, Attorney General Paxton, this has been happening by Republicans and Democrats over the past few years. You know, it's no one's really wanted to handle this in an appropriate manner. I know you like the way President Trump was doing it. Okay, Jill and Jor, Kathy, we have 1 minute each. Go for it.
How does an administration, or how does, you know, an executive not follow the law? Is it functionally just that the Supreme Court doesn't hold them accountable?
No, I think what they hope is that they just do it and no one says anything about it. So, for instance, if Texas hadn't sued, he can do it. So all the things that we don't sue him over, he just figures, look, I can do 100 of these. Only I might or might not get sued over any of them. Maybe I can just take on more power. Who's going to stop me? So he forces us to try to stop him, and wherever we let him go, he just gets to rule by edict. He's in that sense, he's much more like a king than a president, and that's where we're trying to say, hey, we want you to act like a president under the Constitution, not like a king, because we don't have kings in America.
So what can we do legally as private citizens to kind of halt this? Is there anything that we can really, you know, do besides a revolt?
I think you vote for people that follow the law, that care about the law. I think you have to speak to your representatives. It's not much you can do legally. We can do that legally, but you could bring a private action, if you could show harm based on something that happened to you, based on these illegal policies, I think you might have a chance of winning and finding some type of recovery. But largely, I'd say most people, they need to speak out, because if we don't speak out, our country really will change, and it won't be for the better. So I think it's really important to speak out, not be afraid of the government and what they might do to you, and be willing to talk to your representatives and say, you know, we need you to do the right things. We need you to protect this country. And if you don't, we'll find somebody else who will.
Kathy, last question. Thank you, Attorney General Paxton.
Yes, General Paxton, several of our listeners are asking questions about legal immigrants. First of all, if you happen to know how many legal immigrants roughly our country admits every year, Chris Foster, who's one of our former board members, thought it was maybe even around 1 million that we admit legally every year. And then there was a question too regarding does illegal immigration end up depressing wages and employment opportunities for those who legally immigrate here?
Yeah, and I don't know the exact number. I think it is somewhere around. I've heard the numbers, and I've known them in the past. It's something like that. We still let a lot of people in this country, and that's great. Yes, I think that's why Trump was successful increasing wages of certain group, well, almost every group, highest they've ever been, maybe in the history of the country, because he was stopping some of the illegal immigration, which does depress, especially at the lower end and the middle end. So it does the most harm to the people that can least afford it.
Well, thank you. And it looks like we're right at time. We're at 2:45. And we just want to thank you so much for your time today and for everything that you do for Texas and for our country. We're very grateful for you coming on this afternoon.
Hey, thanks for having me. I love what you guys are doing to educate people, and especially these young people. They seem like great kids, and I look forward to them being leaders sometime in the near future.
Well,
thank you so much. They are great kids, and thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. A real honor. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all for doing this. Thanks for having me. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Bye. Well, that was cool. Other than my electronics, like losing battery. What did you? That was a good question though. How many people do we admit? Is it Chris Foster? Hi, Chris Foster. How many people do we admit legally every year? And we do admit, maybe we could Google that question. But we do admit millions per year legally, and that's good to remember because, as I said, if you want people to abide by the law, suddenly you're heartless, and it seems as if we're not letting anybody in at all, but actually we are. So I'll Google that question while somebody else speaks up. Just go for it.
We just have fundamentally, we have to do a better job of combating what you said about that. Well, you have no heart, when in all reality, that's just like his answer is just not true. But I think too often we answer the question on the person's playing field as if we're giving credence to the fact that we need to answer it, like that we really don't have a heart. And that works like in every setting. You can be shut down just by saying, well, you're just not compassionate, or you just don't care about them, when that's not reality. Because most of the people I know who have this opinion that I'm friends with or that I see are the ones who do charity work, or the ones who volunteer at church, or the ones who actually do get out and help other people. So he said we have to speak out, and if we're going to speak out, then we do need to do a better job of showing our real ideas, because it's so easy just to be shut by already. We don't really want to do that to the other side, and we don't want to just make a caricature of them and just call them, say something like that. It's not truth, and it's not really what we do. So we can't fight like fire with fire, but we definitely can say the truth a whole lot better. Because I know my generation, my parents' generation, and maybe even before that, it's always been like, Republican ideas are uncompassionate, or Republican ideas are for the rich, or any of those different pejorative terms that really you kind of grow up in some places and just assume. But they're kind of stupid, but at the same time, they're really powerful in people's lives. They really hold on to them, and they really believe them.
It's a hard argument. It's a hard argument to beat. It's just a hard, you have no heart. You have no heart. You have no heart. Yeah, I think that you're right, Jewel. If you're a Republican or an independent or anything of that nature, and you want to abide by certain laws, you have no heart. Aubrey and I found this exactly the same time. 2016 yearbook of immigration statistics, the United States admitted a total of 1.18 million legal immigrants. So that's interesting, right? There are. Who else wants to say something about the show today? Or even the audience, if you would like to talk to us about the show today. Dakari, go for it.
I just thought it was great. I mean, all the questions and everything he said, and like you guys said, it is quite a hard argument to beat, but that's a good thing. We admit legally 1.18 million. So it's just things have to be done, like my grandmother would say, in decency and in order. So that's the bottom line of it. So thank you to General Paxton for everything you said, and thank you to all of our viewers for being on today.
He gave such straightforward, quick answers too. It was nice to talk to him. He was ready to go. Just wanted to tell us, and it was also nice. He didn't seem to be measuring his words or pandering. So that was cool. That was cool to see from someone in government.
I think it was pretty interesting that, when you think about the border and you think about mayhem, you don't really imagine that everything is in place for it to work orderly. And he really just said, yeah, everything's there. You just have to untie Border Patrol's hands and let them do their job. So I don't know. I never thought about it quite that simply, that they're really there and they're just not allowed to act, and everything is in place, and the whole thing isn't mayhem. It's just been created that way by force of
executive
laziness.
power. Becoming kings.
Well,
Becoming king.
And I do think the executive branch, the legislative branch needs to get more involved, and they haven't, and they've been giving it to the presidents, whether it's President, Bush or Clinton or Trump or, Biden. Because the legislative branch of the US government doesn't want to deal with it, they're making this a presidential problem. Thank you, Aubrey. When it really shouldn't be a presidential problem. It should be a legislative problem, which represents all the people across the country in the different districts, and they could represent the voices of America. And instead, it's becoming a kind of the problem of a singular person in the executive branch, and that's not the way it's meant to be. It's meant to be a collective voice about how we want to deal with this in America. So I think from a constitutional standpoint, but it's so political, people don't want to take a stance on it. People just don't want to take a challenge. They want the votes, or everyone's afraid of not having heart or doing the right thing, and so it perpetuates itself and goes on and on and on.
Yeah, I don't know about you all, but I know a good amount of immigrants from different places, like, a friend from Nepal or Sri Lanka or Nigeria or Senegal. And all of them came here in interesting ways. And all of them came here, and it was either their parents or their own actual ambition and dream that brought them here. And to hear their stories of how they became citizens is so cool. And we don't tell those stories really ever, because they're all legal citizens. We don't hear them or how it works. I'm even knowing all of those people, it's still shrouded in in a bit of a mystery, and we don't talk about the policy of maybe improving really the process of becoming an American really ever, because it's politicized. Why don't we talk about, if you really cared about it, why don't we talk about how to make the most amount of people Americans the fastest way possible while serving the country the best way possible? I mean, there are horror stories of immigration I've definitely heard where people get trapped up and they never can get in, and there's no reason why they can't, or where they had a lawyer run away, an immigration lawyer run away with their money, or all different kinds of things. And when we talk about it, all we ever talk about is people coming over the border and whether they get deported, when all of those people possibly could have come another way that was legally, and they could have been helped do that. But we don't really ever have that discussion on cable news, and certainly not on college campus, not my college campus.
And probably not in any college campus. That's so true. Kathy, do you have anything you'd like to talk about?
Well, I just think the most important thing is that we follow the laws of our country. And when at the very top levels of the government, if decisions are made to not follow the laws, then it really opens the door for various states and even cities and local jurisdictions to decide they're not going to follow laws either. And when we lose the rule of law in our country, we've really lost everything. And so and I think that's one of the most important things that we heard from Attorney General Paxton today, is that it's just so important to follow the laws that we have. And then as citizens, if we're not happy with those laws, we have the recourse to elect new members of Congress who will represent us and vote the way that we would like them to, and get the laws changed. But that was my biggest takeaway from today.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Well, did anybody in the audience have anything they'd like to say? Aubrey, do you?
Something that I noticed was the same as Jewel and Jorn. Just that, I don't know, I think it's always refreshing to listen to someone who is so no hesitation when answering. I mean, he's devoted so much time to these issues and to learning more about the Constitution. And I love just how devoted he is to that, and inspiring that we all should continue to as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right, Dakari, I think we're going to wrap up here. Dakari, any last parting thoughts? Anyone?
Just thank you to Mr. Horner for sponsoring this. This was amazing, and I know that so many people got so much out of it. So we thank you so much. And you should be expecting mail from me soon.
Yes, thank you. And that is true. It's knowledge is power, and being vocal. Calling your representative is really important, I think. Voting is important. So is calling your representative and saying, I'm not happy with the fact you're not doing anything in the legislative branch about this problem, is certainly, and just being well informed. In closing, what I thought was interesting was how detrimental it actually is. We hear about that in broad strokes, but how detrimental it really and dangerous it can actually be for the people to come across the border in the way they're doing it. And of course, I don't think we stereotype and say it's every single person, but it's the people that are getting their money from the cartel to come with. That's a serious, serious danger, to have the cartel now. They're running from the cartel. The irony is they want to get away from the cartel and come for safety in America, but they borrowed the money from the cartel to come. And now the cartel is going to be dictating their lives, even here in America. And then the American government has a difficult time protecting the people that came across the border that wanted the protection in the first place. So I just think those stories aren't told enough, especially all the children that are coming alone and they're without their parents. It's really kind of a hard situation as well. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. It was a great show. And we just think having the Attorney General with us was fantastic. Thank you, Dwayne Horner. Thank you, Jewel and Jordan and Dakari and Kathy and Aubrey and Tova and all of you listening with us today. We just appreciate that you joined us. But anyway, thank you all so much and have a great day. Everyone, you can sign off like John Boy on the Waltons.